Hello, Dr. Gundi Rhoades here again for podcast number 3. And I have my beautiful friend Ria with me again. You know, she is a community lawyer, very smart also, and eater. And she eats food, you know, and therefore therefore she is qualified to talk with me about food and the environment. So after last week, oh, good day, by the way.
Well, thank you, Gundi.
How are you?
I want to say how smart you are too.
So we talked last week about gluten and gluten intolerance and why this is a problem, you know, and about the extraction of the flour and so forth, you know, as one sort of piece in the puzzle of why health nowadays is not optimal. Actually, have you noticed, Ria, also, you know, I always just put this as a statement that the health of our people is not good anymore. Yeah, I am...
You mean in the general population?
In the general population.
Yeah.
You know, like, we do have a problem. You know, like, how many people do you know that are really thriving, healthy and energetic?
Look, I'm someone who puts a lot of time into my health and I don't feel like I'm at optimal health. So someone with my resources and ability to kind of try and do things that help I still feel like I'm really struggling sometimes. So.
As are most people, you know, like, and as are all my clients. I'm all day, every day busy as a veterinarian. A lot of that are injuries, you know, but a lot of that are chronic diseases too, you know, and then this is what made me do this podcast, because in my little country town here, I listen to the stories that come with every family that comes through my door that I get told, because as vets, we are very non-scary. You know, we do hear stories and we hear the whole lot, you know, rather than if you're a dentist where people can't talk because their mouth is open, you know, or you are, you know, going to a doctor and you've got 5 minutes with him, you know, like, we are a little bit more relaxed, I think, and as veterinarians. So I do get the stories, you know, and people here have known me for a long time. So I can say with some authority that nearly every family that comes through my doors, you know, has got something happening. And it nearly
From a chronic health point of view.
Chronic health, and they're nearly always the same things, you know, that happen. They are cancer, very sad, cancer in young children or in older people, you know, breast cancer, leukemia is a big one. We'll talk about that later. Brain tumors, gut cancer, prostate cancer, you know, all of those are so common. Then what is striking is that so many young families have got autistic children, or children at least on the spectrum, which is one of the dots that I have been working on in connecting, you know, and I will tell you about that. Then there is allergies and asthma. And I always say, when I was at school in the 80s, we had one kid at school or in my class that had an asthma puffer, you know, and nowadays I don't know what the numbers are, you know, but it's like so many children have got asthma, which, coming back to last week's conversation about inflammation, you know, it's an inflammation response of the body, asthma, the young women that suffer, so many, you know, from endometriosis and polycystic ovaries.
I had a very long journey with endo,
Yeah. And when I was at school and when I was a young woman, it was just not heard about. You know, this is a striking thing again. Neither was autism. Do you remember the movie Rain Man?
Yeah.
Justin Hoffman and Tom Cruise, you know, where it was
groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking. And it was like weird. And oh my God, look at Justin Hoffman as Rain Man, you know, and as an autistic man. And it was like such a curious thing to do, you know. And I did a podcast a couple of months ago with a pediatrician from the US, Michelle Perot, and she said when she was at uni, she's about my age, you know, the professor called them all to him one day saying, you have to see this. This is what we now call autism.
Right.
Yes, that's how rare it was.
Yeah. Isn't it?
It's amazing. Yeah. And this is not long ago. This is like maybe, let's say 35 years ago.
Now it's commonplace.
Now it's commonplace. You know, the young families that come through my door in my clinic, it appears to me that every second one has got autism. You know, I think the real number, talking to teachers and health professionals in this town, it's probably, we worked out hard to say, because I don't think anybody has counted, but it's probably 1 in 40. From when it was maybe 1 in 5,000 or less. These are the statistics that I hear. I think it was probably even less. So why is that?
Why is that?
Why is that? Lots of reasons, but it's about how we farm, and this is what my podcast is about. How we farm, what do we do to the soil? How do we farm? And in a nutshell, we farm with chemicals we never used to. Especially since 1991. That's when Roundup came on the market and took over the planet. I think there's 9 billion tons of Roundup now out, which is a herbicide, which nearly every time I use it.
When you say it's out, is it still out? I mean, does it biodegrade? What happens to all the Roundup?
Well, the company says it biodegrades very quickly, but I can tell you in my garden, where I did Roundup just on the edges, just because I'm sometimes lazy. I've done it.
You can do it on the edges.
I thought, oh, well, at least I'm not going to eat this, and I did it maybe once, maybe twice, and maybe before I knew all of this, it's still not growing. The things that are growing there are still distorted. It's very, very, very strong stuff.
And if it's biodegradable, why is it ending up in our rivers and our bodies and the ocean?
It's water soluble. So it goes into every single little crevice in your body and into the rivers. Now, coming back to the families in my clinic,
that's really violating, actually, that it just goes into every part of my body.
And you don't even know about it, and I could talk for ages about how things are tested, for their safety. Monsanto, the company that makes glyphosate, said it's all right, you can drink it, because it doesn't affect your biological pathway, because it stops the shikimate pathway, which is only a pathway in plants, bacteria, and algae. So it's not in you, so it's safe, and the guy that advertised it, was drinking it, and he is now dead, It's on a much more subtle level, so coming back to, do we have a health problem? Obesity, depression, mental health, allergies, weird autoimmune diseases, multiple sclerosis, cancers, all of these, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and then the fertility problems, infertility clinics. Fertility clinics are so busy nowadays, never used to be either. So why is that? What has gone wrong? And to give you the answer, it's because we started farming with chemicals. It's a huge thing in this. So today, let's just talk about the subject that is in everybody's mouth or tummy, which is the gut microbiome.
The gut microbiome. Now, I don't even know what a biome is. I know now that the stomach and the gut are not the same thing. And also, I'm very interested, if I may say, in gut bacteria, because there's a lot said about gut bacteria. So I know that's a whole lot of stuff, but if you can lay all that out for me, I would be indebted to you. And then I quickly come at the end, I tell you all, what the microbiome, which is the bacteria in your gut, what it is, where it comes from, how it works, what it does, how important it is. And then how to bring it to great optimal health.
We can do that too. And then at the end, I tell you, or in between, is where it has all gone wrong.
I'm just here for the free advice, actually. Gundi's helping me bring my guts to optimal health.
Well, everybody talks about gut microbiome nowadays.
They do.
And it's probiotics are a big thing.
Is it enough? Is probiotics enough?
No. It's a step in the right direction. But it's not enough. So what is it? So in our gut, especially in our big hindgut, in the colon, we should have.
What do you call that? The what?
The colon.
C-O-L,
hindgut.
Hindgut.
Just maybe it's a vet term. Veterinarian term. But it's.
I'm sure we've got one too.
It is like the large intestine. So you've got the small intestine and the large intestine. And in the small intestine, you break down the food, and then you absorb it, and the not absorbable parts, which is your fiber in your diet, that can't be digested by our bodies. So it ends up in the colon, and there it is actually used as food for your gut bacteria. And that's where they live and they They love
the
it.
gut bacteria eat the fiber.
Yeah, because they are hungry. They need food to eat.
Because everything else has been digested.
Yeah, and you've absorbed what you needed.
Yeah.
So we as people and dogs and cats and everything that is not a herbivore, not a cow or a horse or a goat, you know, we actually cannot digest cellulose. Did you know that?
Cellulose? That's plant something.
It's fiber.
Fiber.
Yeah.
Cellulose and fiber are the same thing.
Yeah, and if I can just come back to biology.
I'm just here to keep it simple for everyone.
If we can just go back to sunlight and plants and photosynthesis. Yeah. Which touches climate change. Yeah. So carbon dioxide in the air gets grabbed by the plants in the chlorophyll, which is the green bit in the leaf. Yeah. And it grabs 6 of the carbon dioxide molecules. Yeah. And it makes it into one sugar. Which is a ring of 5 carbons, and 1 is sticking out. And starch is when they're all going one way. Yeah. And cellulose is nearly the same, where 1 sugar goes up and the other one goes down. Not a big difference. You know, like when you look at it on a piece of paper. But that's, you know, that's your fiber in the plant. You know, this is like your leaf matter. You know, and your salad and that
your matters
carrot.
In the colon, because if that's healthy in the colon, the bacteria are also being nourished and healthy. And why do we need them to be healthy? What happens if they're not?
Lots of stuff. Let me just jump back to the cellulose.
I don't want to take you out of your
the bacteria can digest it. They can do something with your fiber.
Yes.
Your body can't. So a cow can eat cellulose, and the bacteria in its rumen break down the cellulose, the fiber, the grass. If you would eat only grass, you would have to eat like a cow probably 20 hours a day. That's so the fiber goes into your gut, you know, and feeds the gut microbiome.
I've got other stuff I want to do. I don't want to eat grass for 20 hours a day.
So however, you know, like we should have bacteria in our gut, you know, like trillions of them. More cells of gut bacteria, about 3 kilograms worth.
Wow.
In your gut. And you have more bacteria cells in your body than your own cells.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
And that's healthy bacteria, right?
Yeah, they can be healthy or unhealthy. So
are parasites a kind of bacteria? Or is it, am I just totally confusing that issue?
Worms and things, you know, protozoa, they're true, you know, they're probably bigger. You know, like we are just not these sterile beings that we are meant, that everybody thinks, you know, teeming with life.
Flesh and parasite and bacteria. It's kind of gross, but here we are.
Here we are, So the gut bacteria in your stomach, they do a lot of stuff. For example, they take a substance, which is an amino acid called tryptophan, and make it into serotonin. Have you heard about serotonin?
Yeah, serotonin's the feel-good chemical, which makes everything feel okay. So if I don't have enough serotonin, I'm going to feel like, can I say shit? Can I say shit on the podcast? I'm going to feel really crappy if I don't have serotonin. And lots of people are on antidepressants because they don't have enough serotonin.
That's right. So serotonin, your feel-good hormone, your antidepressant, building your stuff called tryptophan, which is an amino acid, an essential one. We can't make it. You need gut bacteria to transform it into serotonin, which makes you feel good.
That's amazing.
So just to follow that line of thought, what happens if you don't have that right gut bacteria? So how do you kill your gut bacteria?
I'm going to say glyphosate.
Roundup is an antibiotic. Glyphosate is an antibiotic. So with every bit of food that you eat, you know, you get a little dose, but a big enough dose of glyphosate, which will heavily distort or kill your gut bacteria. Other things that do the same are antibiotics. Chlorinated water, probably. I'm not sure, and I found nobody that yet could answer it. Does the chloride get absorbed before it reaches the end of your gut? You know, probably does. But preservatives,
they kill gut bacteria.
They are there to kill bacteria,
to preserve it, and so it doesn't. Antibiotics,
antifungal tablets, The high sugar content in our diet encourages the wrong bacteria, and encourages yeast infections,
fungal infections.
Yeah. So we do destroy, our gut bacteria with every non-organic piece of bread that you're eating. So you just have to be aware. The whole agricultural industry works nowadays with Roundup, and where a lot of the times they don't just, the way it works is they spray Roundup on the paddocks when they're empty and they've got weeds coming up. So it's in the ground and on the ground, and it's not widely known that it is also an antibiotic. It is there to kill the weeds. The fact that's known, and that's why it is used, and used by nearly every farmer. And the farmers don't quite know, because the knowledge about Roundup is so tightly controlled by Monsanto, and so there is not super much research that has been done, about the implications. But we do know that Roundup stops the shikimate pathway, which is a pathway in plants. That's why the plants die. And in bacteria, this is why the bacteria die. And in fungi, so that's why the fungi die, which are really central in the soil to create fertile soil. So when you eat it, it is in your body. And then your gut bacteria die. Now, you have bacteria everywhere in your body, not just in your gut, by the way. You have got them in your nostrils, on your skin, in your mouth, in your eyes, on your cornea, in your ears, like even in the cisterns and in the mammary ducts of your breasts, you have got bacteria. And research has been shown that if you take antibiotics and you kill the bacteria, like women will know you get thrush. In the breasts, it turned out that the bacteria normally in the breast protect you from breast cancer. So that gives a different spin onto something like Roundup, like glyphosate. When you think, okay, it's an antibiotic that I daily eat with every slice of bread, everything that has got canola in it, everything of soy, including your tofu, every corn cob that you eat will have Roundup.
These are all products that are these are all crops that are very heavily monocultural, monoagricultural, and and glyphosate is heavily used in them. Right?
It is. It's not the only one, but it is one of the main ones. And then you put on top that we nowadays, the big companies, and especially in Australia and America, we created genetically modified crops that are
especially in Australia.
Yes, the European Union is very much more
regulated.
And they are not as heavy on those chemicals as we are here. Some other countries, I just heard that Letland, Estonia, is completely organic. Denmark is going that way. A lot of the European countries where farming is in smaller parcels. They've got smaller blocks, smaller farms. It's a bit more natural. It's older. Are not as heavily chemicalized as Australia and America. And Australia and America are very much, what our farms here like. They are like 30,000 hectares.
They're enormous.
Something. They're enormous. So it's very handy and very easy to just genetically modify corn so that it will not die from Roundup application. Then you put Roundup on the ground before you plant it. Then there's nothing else growing. Then you grow your corn crop, and then you can come with a crop duster aeroplane. Spray Roundup over the whole lot so that all the weeds in between die. But because the corn
is genetically
modified, survives, which still has got it in it. Another way that farming is often done is with wheat, for example, that is not genetically modified, and sorghum really badly so as well, that to make it even before harvest, you have an application of Roundup to kill it, because it kills plants, to kill it so that it ripens or stops it, makes it all dry out, which then is easier to harvest. Yeah. So it's
a lot of Roundup.
It's a lot of Roundup. It's handy for the farmer because if you have ever, I get annoyed by my little pathway, in my garden path here, that the kikuyu is forever growing in and the weeds are coming, and I'm sometimes lazy me, so tempted to go in there with a spray gun, with a Roundup to make it look pretty.
Yeah.
At least I wouldn't eat stuff from my garden path.
Yeah.
But this is how food production works nowadays.
Yeah.
So therefore you have your wheat sucking up the Roundup before it dies.
Yeah.
So then it's in it, and that's your flour that you eat. Yeah. So you just have to be aware that this is what happens with every bite that you eat that is not organic. So then in your gut, it'll kill the gut bacteria. Now let me tell you, do you want to know what they do?
Gut bacteria. I'm dying to know what the gut bacteria do. And how I can make mine as healthy as possible.
We started with serotonin.
Yes.
So another thing they make is, again, out of tryptophan, and we'll come back to that little magic ingredient later. Vitamin B3.
Vitamin B3, which is when I was vegan, I was dosing on B3 because I couldn't get enough.
When you Google nowadays, where does vitamin B3 come from? Which I Googled and I tried to find out where it comes from. And it actually comes from the soil bacteria again. So which you kill with glyphosate. So
as a community lawyer, I'm now thinking about all the class actions that are taking place against Monsanto and all the ones that will come.
They're weird, So tryptophan, the building block for B3, comes from the soil, and then your gut bacteria actually transform it into vitamin B3. And a professor, a psychologist in London, has done research where he actually cured schizophrenia with high doses of vitamin B3 and zinc. So again,
just explain that pathway, the high doses of vitamin B3 and zinc. They did what to the person who had schizophrenia?
Cured them.
Yes, by promoting gut bacteria, by promoting...
no, it's more that the gut bacteria make the vitamin B3 in a healthy gut.
I see, so they just substituted what the gut hadn't
normal,
done.
No supplement. But because nobody nowadays, most people don't have a healthy gut anymore. You look at mental health from a funny perspective of this, and you think, I just wonder how much does the destruction of the gut microbiome have to do with mental health? I'm just going to go on a quick tangent. I'm just thinking about our planet and how much she's suffering, like as an organism, and I'm thinking how much she needs us to be at our most optimal in order to kind of help her recover or help her fully express herself. And we're all kind of so, in some sense, stunted. Right. So in this kind of great enterprise of, the earth, we can't play our full part while we're kind of shut down in places and kind of sick. And this is why I guess, I'm compelled to make this podcast, to say, to give you hope. It's actually relatively simple, to solve. And B, it is very sad to see people not living their exactly wonderful life, and life throws us things. It's not that my life has been easy. I've always eaten healthy though, so I'm still with it. You're resilient. There's a strength in you. But why? You go through stuff, but you always, you face stuff, and you have this resilience. There's a core strength in you. But I have also eaten organic food for 30 years. So it's like your organism comes back into balance. Like you can handle things and knock down, get back up again. So when you take when you destroy the basis of life, and what your brain just needs to function, which is your magnesiums and your fatty acids and your zinc and your B vitamins, then mental health becomes okay. I don't say that there is no drama in this world, that your mother didn't do whatever to you, you didn't have abuse, but you will not really have a chance to function properly, if the basis of life is not there. And when you think about the basis of life, how long have we lived? Like your ancestors, I always say both sides of your family, they actually have produced you. There was not one of your ancestors missing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was your fathers and your mothers and their father and mother, and then it goes back, and then it goes to the primates, and then it goes further, you know, to actually amoeba. So your lineage is uninterrupted in health. Yeah. You know, so how come nowadays suddenly we are so sick? You know, why is suddenly 1 in 4 women infertile at least, and 1 in 3 men? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you see the suffering that comes with it.
Yeah, it's a deep journey.
So if your mother, you know, and your grandmother, let's take your grandmother, you know, before we had brilliant hospitals, you know, to give you an anesthetic and clean out, you know, your endometriosis. If your grandmother would have had it and would have been infertile, you wouldn't be here.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's a proof in the pudding that life is resilient and it has produced you, you know, so therefore health is innate. It's intrinsic, but you got to feed it the right stuff, you know, and we can't just suddenly kill the soil and kill our microbiome. Yeah. The story about the microbiome is so interesting, you know, like I knew nothing, you know, like until about a few years ago when I got hold of this German book from Ria Jago, who was a medical student.
What's her name?
Ria Jago. And
E-N-D-E-R-S. E-R-S, because some of us will want to follow up later.
And it's called Gut.
That's a good name for a book about the gut.
And she just talks about how the gut functions. You know, and in it I found the first thing, research from 2011. 2 lots of mice. And one group of mice was really frightened. Yeah. And, you know, sort of like scaredy cats. You know, like, and the other one was courageous. And really different, you know, in character. Yeah. So what the research scientists did is they switched the gut microbiome. And guess what happened?
How did they do that?
They would have
like a
probably given them like an enema, you know, like they would have given them probably laxatives and antibiotics. Until the gut was sterile. But they kept the mouse poo in a little jar. Then they switched it. And then the mice switched microbiome. So microbiome is your composition of bacteria. Like lots of 300 different bacteria, all sort of keeping each other at bay, all doing their magic, you know, like nobody has enough space or food to really take over. It all keeps itself in a beautiful balance. And so when they switched the microbiomes, they switched character, you know, and that was the first time that I read about the microbiome, you know, and since then I've listened to lots of people.
For how long? Forever. So it just kept the microbiome kept replicating itself in the same kind of degree of wow.
So that's just an indicator of how, and we don't really even know yet, you know, how deep this is. You know, I heard stories where people switch gut bacteria and switch their characters.
Fecal transfer.
Fecal transplants. That is? And within a very short amount of time. Very short. You know, like Mike Mosley did something on TV, you know, one of his English presenter, you know, like about within half an hour.
So quite quickly it was noticeable.
Quite quickly, you know, and then you then go back like, okay, the gut bacteria make serotonin, you know, out of, or they make B3, you know, which can cure you from schizophrenia. They also, the gut bacteria also, from the same ingredient, from the tryptophan, make melatonin, which makes you sleep. That puts a different spin on insomnia.
It really
like
does.
Is your gut microbiome right? Now where it comes from in the first place is really interesting as well, because you might have heard that babies when they're born get inoculated by their mother.
I have heard that.
So when you give birth, then it sounds a bit gross actually.
No, you know, let's just go there.
This is nature, right? And this has worked since we have had a gut and since we've been here on this planet, you know, so the baby gets pushed through the birth canal, you know, through the mother's vagina, and has got it all over itself and in it, and it'll swallow it, and it'll swallow the microbiome of the mother, which is all around her, you know. So what happens if you're too clean? The baby won't get it. What about if you have a cesarean?
Long-term health implications.
Midwives nowadays have started to actually do that and inoculate the babies, which again sounds gross.
No, they put swabs inside the mum, and then they get the swabs and they give it to the baby.
So we have learned, you know, to do that. However, how many women still have got a normal microbiome and have never been on antibiotics, have not eaten bread with antifungals, you know, like have not eaten a diet too high in sugar, you know, have not had tablets against fungus or had glyphosate in their diet. It's not that many anymore. And then when you think of, go back to caveman time, how a baby would have been born. It would have been born in a cave, and then it would have been on the dirt, in the dirt, wrapped in probably fur from animals.
I'm thinking about a tree that I love very much. It's a birthing tree, actually, from Jabberong country in Victoria. Beautiful ancient tree. I think she's 800 years old. And the women would give birth. And this knowledge has been given publicly. They would give birth, and there'd be coals underneath that were warm. They were laid over with furs and things like that. Just a very beautiful, grounded, in the earth kind of a process.
Yeah.
Not sterilized. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And that is the big wisdom of nature, because the soil bacteria, which makes soil alive, they're very much what is in our gut as well. So they are, I don't know recent research, but I think they're very similar, those two. So, what's in us, is meant to be natural, and so the babies would then crawl around in the dirt, and then they would lick their fingers, and then they would have a piece of food which would fall into the mud, and then they would still put it in, and in
kids put everything into their mouths, you just can't stop them.
And so do puppies, and they, it's just only us recently, maybe in the last 100 or 200 years, that have had this really clean, hygienic, so-called hygienic lifestyle, So we have got a gut microbiome that gets bombarded with chemicals, and glyphosate is not the only one, and there is 10 million chemicals that we have invented in the last 100 years that all go and do whatever to your gut microbiome. So the implication of all of those is we have only just noticed the tip of the iceberg. When I was a young vet 20 years ago, we never talked about giving antibiotics that it might be bad for your gut. Nowadays I'm very careful, and I don't overdo it. I only do it when I have to, and I try to find other ways, and then follow up with probiotics afterwards. And how good or bad are probiotics? If you get 10 different, something out of a jar, better than nothing. But compared to the 300 odd different bacteria that nature would have provided you with,
I've heard that the underside of leafy greens that you grow in your garden has just got so much more potency. I've been raiding Gundi's, has a very beautiful patch of chard outside, and I made a smoothie earlier. I'm not a poster child for ideal health in any sense, but, I do know that the underside of greens in your garden is just this incredibly potent site for probiotics. So if you can get that stuff into you while it's raw, it's just... It's like eat dirt, it's got all the stuff on it.
Eat dirt, and with it go the vitamins, so that is one good way of re-inoculating yourself, And the babies born, which would have got it naturally, their mothers would have never, antibiotics were only discovered not even 100 years ago, so people would have eaten fermented foods, for example, because we didn't have fridges. And
that's salted meat and different ways of preserving that were still quite healthy for the food.
We would have ale and wine, it's old, and we would ferment vegetables, sauerkraut and the like, so nowadays, drink your kombucha, get your live yogurt, get your probiotics, and be hilarious with it, and don't be too clean when you go and have a veggie garden and do, I always...
Keep the cat out.
I don't tell anybody.
Keep
the cat out. I don't tell anybody. I don't really wash the carrots that well, because I know of the benefits to it. So that's all really interesting. So what else do they do? They make, the bacteria take the cellulose, the fiber, and split it up and make volatile fatty acids.
No way.
They do that. And they heal the gut. So the volatile fatty acids, or short-chain fatty acids, they are really implicated when they are lacking in irritable bowel syndrome and ulcerative colitis.
And
ulcerative colitis.
That would be ulcers, ulcerative colitis.
So
that's the inflammation of the colon.
So many people have got irritable bowel syndrome, and digestive problems, so if the bacteria get their food and if they then produce, those short-chain fatty acids, to heal your gut mucosa, then they are very important. Now, 80% of the serotonin is made by your gut bacteria.
No way.
That's a lot. Yeah.
That's
if
most
not
of it.
More. That's most of it. Yeah.
Oh my
so
goodness.
How important are they? Yeah, for your mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredibly important. And your sleep hormone. Now, another thing that they do, just to blow your mind now.
Yeah.
Same ingredient again, tryptophan. It makes
tryptophan. It sounds like a drug.
Yeah, it's just a building block of protein.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about that another time. But it makes a stuff called IPA, which goes into your brain, and then protects you from beta amyloid plaques, which in plain English is called Alzheimer's. Yeah. So people say that the trajectory of Alzheimer's is that every woman, it affects women more than men, will have Alzheimer's from an ever decreasing age. That nearly every woman will suffer from it.
Have Alzheimer's. Yeah. So we'll have Alzheimer's according to this research.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how am I going to stop that from? Because I'm not getting Alzheimer's. I'm here to say that that's not my pathway.
Have a really good, healthy gut microbiome.
Good, healthy microbiome in my gut.
And tryptophan is, I jump ahead a bit, it's only made by bacteria in the soil.
Yes.
Which the soil bacteria are killed by Roundup.
Roundup and Alzheimer's. I'm seeing a massive link that you have been drawing for us slowly.
Yeah. So this research is in its infancy, and I don't claim that I've done any research on this. I just found these connections and I find them fascinating, and I'm just putting it out there. That this is when I found out, that tryptophan is only made by the bacteria in the soil. And then that Roundup kills those
bacteria in the soil.
Yeah. Then it is a weird conclusion to come to. Then, oh my God, tryptophan makes IPA that protects it from Alzheimer's. The trajectory is 1 in 1 will happen.
That seems logical.
It's very logical.
That's that's not just a correlation, that's a direct kind of a consequence.
Yeah. And you need the gut bacterium in your gut to actually take the tryptophan and make it into IPA.
So there's bacteria all along the chain that are doing things that are necessary for us to feel like happy human beings. Yeah. Yeah.
Happy human beings that can sleep well and that will not go crazy. What Alzheimer's is. And it's very sad to think, that Alzheimer's happens in the center of the brain where our emotional memory is.
Isn't it? So
isn't
connection.
That sad? Connections. This is where in the limbic system, where Alzheimer's will be sitting.
So happy human, but then I'm thinking about the rest of nature that relies on, the earth for food. So I'm thinking about animals, and I'm thinking of the plants themselves, and the sentience of plants, and what must the experience of planthood be like if you are not even getting, from the soil, the full expression of nutrients and minerals that you need. Yeah. So we're all just we're all getting really depleted. The depletion of our environment is depleting us, and then we're in this kind of cycle of diminishing expression of ourselves. Yeah. It's, I always say the plot thickens, it's like a detective story.
Yeah, it is. What else does it do? I just have to have a look in my list because I can't always remember everything. So it, of course, the gut microbiome protects you from bad bacteria or viruses taking over. Yeah. And I say if you go out in a paddock and you spray it with Roundup and everything is dead, the first thing that comes back is actually the weed. Yeah.
That grows back after the spraying.
It's not what you want. You don't get a beautiful paddock of flowers. Yeah. You get a weed.
It's a weed. I thought you said weed. Yeah, the weed comes back first.
Yeah, weed. The stuff that you don't want. Yeah. Yeah. So it comes back first because it's the most resilient. Yeah. And
Julian, we've got a teenager with a soccer ball.
we are actually recording. This is Julian, my son, who is 14 years old and is very healthy.
And energetic.
And he wants his mother to go and play soccer. However, So when you have got your gut bacteria killed by antibiotics or by Roundup, the same principle applies. What's coming first is the bad Clostridiums, you know, like the Clostridium is one gut bacteria. Lots of different ones,
bad bacteria.
You know, like, one, you know, is so bad, you know, Clostridium difficile. If you get that, you know, it's really nasty, you know, and normally it would be kept under control, you know, like by other bacteria.
By the good bacteria.
Because if you
multiply those, it will outnumber the really bad ones. So what do the really bad ones do? I guess they interrupt your digestion and
it's like the salmonellas or the giardia or the Clostridium, you know, you will get diarrhea and, you know, like tummy aches or bloat, you know, you will be, you know, have gas-producing bacteria, you know, where a friend of mine, she said she was so embarrassed when she was still on a normal diet and she would still have white bread and she would still not eat organic. You know, she said it was so bad, her fluffing, you know, passing wind, that she was never in a room with other people for long enough. You know, so it really impacted on that as well. You know,
that would be very isolating to just feel like you can't even
so
be
that's
around
your
other
gut
people.
bacterium gone wrong. You know, so the neurotransmitters we had, it regulates and promotes new blood vessel formation and healing in the gut. You know, what the bacteria are doing. So it heals it constantly. You know, which again, you know, like how many people have got gut health problems. So heavily involved in the gut-brain axis. Now before we stop, gut-brain axis. So let's just go into this for a minute because it's really beautiful. So in your brain, there's 10 cranial nerves that come out.
Cranial nerves?
They're, you know, nerves, big nerves that come from there, you know, and one of them is number 10, called the vagal nerve.
Yes,
and when
I have heard
studied,
of the vagal nerve.
The vagal nerve does everything to do with digestion and heart rate.
Right.
So if it goes, you know, you, in your mind, you've just eaten, you are relaxing, you're sitting, you know, like it's all nice, you know, your digestive system, your gut will be really, you know, working and peristaltic. So your nerve, number 10, vagal nerve, will tell your gut to now digest. It will tell your heart to slow down. It'll relax you. It'll take the blood out of your muscles because you don't need it there, you need it in your gut. When I studied, I thought that was what the vagal nerve does. It gives orders to our, you know, everything that we call autonomous, you know, where your gut will just digest food if you're thinking about it or not. It's not really, unless you're a yogi or a guru, you know, which like most people are not, you know, it'll digest your food without you knowing. Your heart rate will slow down without you telling it to. So that's what I thought the vagal nerve does. Turns out 80% actually goes the other way. From your gut, it picks up the vibes in your gut. And the good serotonins and so forth. And the fatty acids that are really, you know, like, so it takes those in, maybe not the fatty acids that go via bloodstream, you know, but the vibe, the feeling of your gut, and it puts it straight into your limbic system, which is in the center of your brain. And the limbic system is the system that makes you feel pleasure, learning ability, connection to others. It doesn't have words. It doesn't talk. You know, it doesn't.
What's the vibe of your gut? Like, what picks up the vibe of your gut? Like, what does that mean? Because I'm just thinking about the castle, you know, it's the Section 50 is a very bad Australian kind of thing. When the judge says, or what argument you make, it says it's the vibe, it's Section 51 of the Constitution. So is the vibe, are we talking about, you know, a general sense of well-being? Is it a feeling vibe?
It's a gut feeling.
It's a gut feeling.
It's a gut feeling.
So is that kind of a vibrancy? Or
that's right. You know, so if it puts in happy vibe into your limbic system, And I always say it colors your world.
Yeah.
You know, like if it colors your world pink,
yeah,
you know, then you will look at the world with pink
yeah,
glasses,
right.
you know. But if your gut is really unhappy,
yeah,
and remember, it's really what you feed it and what's in there, you know,
Yeah.
the gut microbiome.
yeah,
You know, if it is not happy, it goes into your limbic system. You
Yeah.
won't even know, it's so subconscious.
yeah,
And it'll just give you that narky
the narky
feeling,
feeling.
you know, and that's what you will look at your world around.
Yeah,
You know, so it's all of that research is just in its infancy. You know, it hasn't really, it's starting now. You know, this is really exciting. You know, we have entered the century of the
Yes.
microbiome and of bacteria.
And what about the impact of other things in one's environment? So not just the you know, the natural environment and chemicals and things, but what about things like trauma and kind of really difficult life experiences that can really bring, you know, the body into a kind of a contraction? How does that impact, or am I going outside my remit here? How does that impact on the vibe of the tummy?
Yeah,
or is it all just biological and bacteria based? Like,
you cannot, you know, the more I do medicine, the less I can take things apart. You know, it's really just one, you know, like, so 80% of your vagal nerve takes the information from your gut into your brain.
Yeah.
You know, 20% goes the other way. You know, like if you get a frightful thought, you know how your body reacts.
Yeah,
you know, I can feel it in my gut. You know, that's going this way.
Yeah.
You know, so it is all just one blubbery
it's
thing.
like it's a web, isn't it?
It's
like
web.
Lots of things that are interconnected, and we have to take care to understand the web and to constantly be building and mending and giving health to and supporting.
So that's why I always go back, what has nature done with us all the way along?
Yeah.
You know, forget my medical knowledge. You know, go back to what happened 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 or 1,000,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And we have evolved so slowly, you know, as an entity, you know, where the mind and the gut and the, you know, it's all together. You know, I sometimes like to explain it with modern medicine since the early 1900s. You know, like in 1904, I think we discovered bacteria. This is only 110 or so years ago. Yeah. And then before that, a doctor would give birth to a child, you know, like do an autopsy on a dead body, not wash hands, you know, have a mother give birth and wonder why she dies.
Yeah, that was
quite
common, wasn't it?
We have, it's only 110 years ago, so we have discovered what is a kidney, what does a liver do, you know, how do the nerves function, you know, like, and all that I learned at uni, you know, the biochemistry, it's so young. You know, like, so we learned specialist, you know, not wisdom, you know, knowledge, you know, science from all these little different pieces. But we haven't really put it back together. You know, and nowadays we start to put it back together.
The deeper
you know?
knowledge coming back.
So how our mind is connected to our body and our body is connected to our mind, you know, and this is why I'm so passionate about teaching people of what they do if they eat a normal diet. You know, you've got to be aware, if you eat a diet from a normal farm, a normal piece of bread, you will damage your body so much. And with that, you will damage your mind. You know, so what's first, the chicken or the egg? Are you depressed? You know, because you're depressed and then your body feels horrible? Or did you simply not give it the same nutrients, you know, the nutrients that you need? If you have a car and you take one little bit away, one screw, it will not work. You know, and we have taken so many screws and vital ingredients
work for a while, and then you might be driving along one day and a wheel falls off.
I am amazed that people function.
Well, that's my question, because I know that I'm really sensitive, and so if I eat something that throws me out, then you know, I've got to kind of sit and cope, or, you know, bring myself back into balance using a range of tried and true methods. But I see others around me who are not. They don't have that sensitivity. They can eat a meat pie, particularly younger people. You know, they can eat stuff, and, you know, maybe down the track, you know, it will be telling. But it does seem that some people are getting away with being able to eat stuff.
Yeah, but then you dig a little bit deeper, you know. And when I talk to my young girls that I employ in the clinic, you know, how my young students tell me that Saturday lunchtime they are so lacking in energy that they have to go and sleep all weekend.
Right.
Yeah. And then I say, is that normal for you guys? And she says, yes, we're all like that. You know, and then you talk to another young women, and most of them suffer from endometriosis or from cystic ovaries. A lot of people have got lack of energy and depression.
I read this morning that young people, the rate of alcohol consumption is going down rapidly in the young, and I wonder if that has to do with their bodies can no longer process, alcohol in the way that, previous generations.
Yeah, maybe
Westerners did.
Yeah. Of course, there's always so many factors to it, but statistically speaking, I think 1 in 46% of American young children suffer from a chronic disease. That's a lot. While previously, like 50 years ago, it was minuscule. So
some of that would have been undiagnosed as well, would you say, or not really?
Oh, that's always an argument that people say,
because you can pathologize things that are.
But once you do have an autistic child, there is a distinct difference.
That's
and the cancer wards are full, and there is definitely higher amount of leukemia, and asthma is worse. And all of these weird diseases, that were not just, they just weren't there. I think we can safely say we have a really big problem. So that might be enough for today. There was a lot of knowledge there. I think takeaway for you at home is, if you eat non-organic food, you will eat Roundup, which is not the only chemical and pesticide, but the main one. And you will kill your gut microbiome, which is more important than you will ever know. So that's probably.
I'm also thinking of, gardening, the importance of having my own greens in my own, even just growing in pots, which I've done when I've lived where I haven't had a garden. Just the importance of that to my health, just to be able to grab a handful of parsley or basil or whatever and just be getting that stuff into my food as much as possible, because organic foods can be quite expensive, and at times when I haven't had really strong income, just really finding ways to get those fresh greens and that the probiotic boosting of the fresh greens. So next week we might talk about another reason why I'm so passionate about organic, and why my response always is either pay now or pay later. Particular for young women, so we'll do that next week and talk about what you're actually paying for if you buy non-organic vegetables. Do you get actually anything with it, and how important is it? And is it actually worth spending that much more money on it, and how to do that, and how strategically make it actually affordable, so that it doesn't break your bank balance, because there are a few tricks that you can do, where you have, where it makes it possible. Because money is tight. So with that, happy gut. Happy feelings. I feel like we should be toasting with some
toasting, and yes, anti-Alzheimer's, there we come. Oh, one quick story on that. I had a student called Ping. Hello, Ping. He might be listening. And Ping was a neuroscientist before he wanted to become a vet and rather heal animals, than do research on them. And so very knowledgeable, very bright, and very smart. And, he was a neuroscientist researching Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
So I said, so does anybody ever talk about gut bacteria in that whole research? And he was in the US and in Hong Kong. And he said, no, nobody talked about it. And this is, who knows about farming, that is in a science lab? Probably not, so not talked about. Said, has anybody mentioned the soil ever? Not talked about, so they know. He told me where Alzheimer's is sitting in the brain and where Parkinson's is sitting, and he confirmed that Alzheimer's is more in women than in men, and that Parkinson's is more in men than in women. And he confirmed that they are finding out what the plugs are, amyloid or whatever the plugs, and what's happening, and they can do, put the brains under the microscope and so forth. But the real reason why has not been found. It's not, so I think
it's a great detective story.
I am onto something, and let's say I'm not. The worst thing that can happen is you listen to my advice and you eat better. You eat more healthy.
Gundi, you make things better.
The best that can happen is that I am right.
Yeah.
And that you do actually, you know, by just simply switching to organic, because if you eat organic, you A, don't eat poison, and B, you get all the nutrients, including this, you know, one of many tryptophan, you know, one of many B3s. You know, you will heal your body and you're actually giving yourself a chance.
And you get to enjoy in your old age all the wisdom that you spent decades and decades developing, and you got to share it, you know, with the generations coming. So
what does it mean? You know, if women can't remember and feel connections, and men, you know, with Parkinson's, they, you know, people shake with Parkinson's, they can't control, you know, what's a man thing to do is to do stuff. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? That's
and, you know, men will stop doing and we will stop feeling, you know, and where does the wisdom go? You know, like, so this is what's happening to mankind. And if I may just say, is this a little problem or a big one? It's a big one, you know, because 99% of food is grown nowadays with chemicals. Unless it's in your garden and unless it is organic from a farmer that is definitely doing the right thing, you know, and which is most of them, you know, maybe not the odd misfit, you know, that does do funny stuff, but normally organic food you can trust, you know, and it will have labels on it. You know, I can just show you. This one is the European down here, you know, you can see that one, or on here, you know, the organic label on my cup of tea. I don't want to say a special thing here, you know, like fair and ethical. You see the little NASA, you know, that's one of the certifying bodies, and USDA is the US label, you know, for organic food. They have got certain standards, and then this is an olive oil with the little bud logo, ACO, certified organic. This is the people that I was certified with when I had my farm organic, and, you know, Australia certified organic. And then certain guidelines have to be followed, you know, so you can pretty much be relatively safe, you know, that there's nothing in there, you know. And people say, oh, but what if they cheat, you know? And my answer to that is, right, I get that, you know, like we have law, you know, does murder, just because the law says you're not allowed to kill, do people still do that? Yes. Steal? Yes. You know, that's why we have a law and a police force. So the organic standard is there, and most farmers do apply it and are honest. And if you do have the oddball that doesn't, you know, sooner or later he will be found out, because you can't hide $50,000 of chemicals. You know, having run a farm, I know that you can't hide, you know, those sort of items. And so you can be nearly certain that the food that you buy organic is good for you on healthy soils, but you can be 100% certain if you buy normal food that it is poisonous. You know, so either you want to be really certain that you eat, you know, poison food, you know, then be certain and buy, you know, I call it the bad stuff, you know, or be nearly certain that you do something for it, you know. And I also have to just mention, when you do eat organic, then the environment is not poisoned. You know, we've just been talking about our body as if it's all about us, you know, it's just as much about nature, or even more about, you know, having healthy ecosystems, you know, not having the chemicals run down into the river, you know, causing all the havoc, you know, killing the reef and so forth,
the platypuses.
You know, and the water fleas and the fish and the soil life, you know, and the insects, and then, you know, the birds want to eat the insects and they're gone, you know, and it is just a cycle of misery and destruction, you know, which all of you, by just making that choice of eating organic, you are supporting, you know. So support yourself and support the environment. And that's enough for today. Thank you, Ria. I hope you all enjoyed it, you know, like, please press the subscribe button and share it with your friends.